So, throughout my 17 years, I have found one thing to be truly important. It's absolutely critical for us all to enjoy life's little moments and to be grateful for the gifts that we're given, because it's really essential to the human experience. Now, I know some of you here are probably thinking, whoa there, Liz, calm down. You seem very average, you're only 17 years old. How on earth could you, of all people, have come to such a conclusion? My clever friends, you caught me. But I'm here today to tell you a story. And before I begin, I must inform you that the story is not entirely my own. It spans generations and belongs at its core to its protagonist. I do hope, however, I can do it some justice. So the year's 1935. There's a frigid air barely gripping the outskirts of Chicago's north side, with a harsh Midwestern winter fading into a much more hopeful spring. A small girl, hardly 10, steps out of her tall brick townhouse, swings open an iron gate and skips out onto the sidewalk. Although the air is warming, she's engulfed by a big brown fur coat, just in case, you know. The girl smooths down her dress, adjusts her pearls, and grabs the hand of the maid at her side. She puts on her thin felt hat and looks at her bouncing curls. Maybe the maid asks her if she's ready to go see a show, or a movie screening, or off to the opera. Maybe they do nothing more than walk to the nearest park and feed whatever birds are brave enough to face a cruel winter's tail end. Regardless, the pair walks along. Soon enough, this young girl would grow into a gorgeous young woman, attending lavish parties and dances in Chicago's elite social scene. Her gowns, designer. Her lipstick, ruby red. Please keep in mind, though, that this is all during a time when America's average unemployment rate was around 15%. She lived a life of luxury, which was a luxury few could afford. Don't get me wrong, though. As she grew, this woman would see her fair share of life's trials. A husband changed by a world's war, financial troubles, a daughter lost to a now curable disease, health complications, and just about everything else. Thankfully, though, the woman was blessed with another daughter, a lifeline back to some sort of reality. Through it all, the woman persisted as best she knew how. Her fierce, independent personality and "oh, just let me figure it out" spirit led to nothing less. But sometimes, this same spirit meant falling. It meant making a mistake and stumbling down to the ground until someone else came around to lift her back up, put her back on her feet, no matter how much she protested otherwise. Nevertheless, every day this woman rose, put on some bright pink Revlon lipstick, and put one foot in front of the other, walking on. And eventually, this woman would move in with her daughter and her daughter's husband. And eventually, my grandmother would meet me. Needless to say, my grandma is one of the most important people in my life. I could always count on her for a hug and a kiss and a warm crescent roll when I came home from school or ballet practice as a kid. She loves nothing more than to dote on our 2 dogs, cook up whatever she can find in the fridge, and let me tell you, the lady makes a mean turkey tetrazzini. My grandma continues to be one of the most important people in my life, and more than any of this, she loves her family more than life itself, even if she's not one to really say it outright. It's in the little things, the grocery runs for my busy mom, the way she treats and cares for our dogs, and in asking and genuinely caring about how my brothers and my day went, that this fact was made clear. She's my best friend, and someone who I knew would always be in my corner no matter what happened. So naturally, it was to all of our surprise when we began to see changes in my grandmother's normally content behavior. First, it was a general forgetfulness and lapse of memory and disorientation when we were out in public that resulted in her doing things that were wholly uncharacteristic. Other times it meant feeding the dogs 2, 3, maybe 4 times in a row, a fact that they didn't very much mind, but she didn't remember the time prior. Passing it off as general senility, she was 88 at the time, we didn't think too much of it. Her behaviors were uncharacteristic for her, but not unheard of for someone her age either. But then, soon after, the true forgetfulness came. This manifested itself in the dozens and dozens of $10 checks we found were being sent to fake Publishers Clearinghouse organizations every month. She would sit down at her desk, tear out a check, sign it, send it in with a stamp, then come back to her desk, sit back down, and write another, and another, and another. This was the first clear sign, the first little moment that we knew there was something more going on. But yet, like many who had been in our position, we took it with a grain of salt. From there, though, the signs became unavoidable. Forgetfulness turned to anger at her own inability to remember, and she began hoarding and moving around household items, like my computer charger, for example, which I came home from school one day to find tucked into our freezer. Yeah, in the freezer. At this point, she was declining rapidly, and my parents took her to our family doctor. Upon that doctor's visit, he gave us the news we knew was coming, but yet still didn't want to hear. My grandma, my best friend and one of the most important people in my life, was diagnosed with vascular dementia. Vascular dementia was described to my family and I as reverse aging, where the older my grandmother got, the more care and more childlike she would become, and the more care would be necessary for her to continue living with us. It's a cognitive processing disease, so it affects her ability to think clearly. And in her specific case, it resulted in a series of mini strokes that would, again, affect her ability to think clearly, process information, communicate effectively, and resulted in, most devastatingly, depression. It was during this time that we really found a lot of hope from our friends and family who came and gathered around with us and supported us through this troubled times. And as she continued down this path of dementia, we found her surrounded by people who she loved. We found that we had to learn to appreciate little moments. Talk with anyone who you've met who's seen someone suffer from dementia, and they'll tell you the same thing. It's in these little moments, these little tiny moments of joy, that your hope is found. For us, it's every time my grandma smiles. It's the time just last year when she came and knocked on my parents' bedroom door, and upon opening it, they were faced with nothing more than a smiling and panting golden doodle, with my grandma laughing around the corner. She was laughing and laughing because to her it had made it seem like it was the golden doodle who had done the knocking. It was the time last year when my grandma came into my bedroom and handed me a stack of torn and tattered maps from the 1970s, just because she knew I was going to be getting my driver's license soon. And it's every time we had to call 911 because she was having trouble standing or breathing. And through her anger and confusion and yelling and pain, she reached out and held my hand. Eventually, my grandma was no longer able to continue living with us. She transitioned into a memory care facility just down the road where we visit her several times a week. And yeah, her dementia's worsened. She has a very hard time talking now and can barely remember a thing from even 30 seconds ago. But even still, it's the little moments we live for. Heck, it's the little moments we have to live for because that same little girl with the pearl necklace and felt hat just turned 92. And when we marched ourselves up, store-bought lemon cake in hand with the dogs in our other, and saw her smiling face, she may not have been able to say anything, but it was her laughter and joy upon seeing the people she loved that made it a truly priceless occasion. I believe there's a lesson in all of this too. I mean, look around. We live in a world where moments are meant to be captured and captioned, where slowing down is synonymous with moving backwards. We hustle, rush, and hurry to life's next pit stop. We place value in the fast, the immediate, the now. According to a recent survey conducted by Microsoft, our attention span is down to 8 seconds. 8 seconds, people. That's shorter than a goldfish. We swipe left or right on a whim, scroll through our feeds, and watch our phones at every ping. But there is value, I promise. There's so much value in slowing down to enjoy the universe, working to give us little moments of pure bliss. In living with someone suffering from dementia, this lesson was shoved rather forcibly down my throat. We can't be 2 steps ahead. We can't rush their treatment, their well-being, or their thoughts. We have to take what moments we're given and do our very best to help out with the rest. My girl Oprah does a really good job in summing this up in her book, What I Know for Sure. A really amazing friend gave me this copy last year when my grandma's symptoms were at her worst, and these following words really helped carry me through. Oprah writes, "What I know for sure is that every day brings a chance for you to draw in a breath, kick off your shoes, and step out and dance. To live free of regret and filled with as much joy, fun, and laughter as you can stand. You have the choice this very moment, the only moment you have for certain." The only moment we have for certain. Kind of a curious thought when we take enough time to slow down and think about it. Again, all we have is right now. All we truly have is this moment. We can choose to either hustle, rush, and hurry to that next destination, or we can live in it. Live in this moment. The choice is ours and ours alone. So, you beautiful, crazy, wonderful people, I'm going to leave you with this. Find your little moment of joy. We all have that moment. It's all out there waiting for us to go experience it. So put down your phones, close your computers, and go look. Make the choice and just go for it. And I hope you all know that there's a 17-year-old with a lot more to learn and a 92-year-old with a lot left to teach rooting for you. Thank you.